Welcome everyone. I'm here today with Kerry Milne. How are you, Kerry?
I'm well, thanks, Amy.
So good to have you here, and I'm really excited to dive into your business journey because you've done a few things and you're really in I guess, a really pivotal part of your business and making some changes in that space. So I'm really keen to kind of dive into that and learn a little bit more about what you're doing and who you help. So for those people that are just coming across you for the first time, let us know who you are and who you help.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm Kerry Milne. I'm the founder and managing director of a business called Gap. I started that nearly 7 years ago after being made redundant from the corporate world for the first time in my life, which I was completely outraged about. And the thing that I do is help businesses either scale or pivot, or in some cases, commercialize an idea. So it's really about taking where they are at that time in their journey, looking at what it is that they want to achieve, and then thinking about how they can get there. At the same time as sort of advising and coaching, I have also, got a blueprint that I take businesses through, that I know whether you're a massive corporate or a startup just wanting to do a Series A funding in 18 months, the framework is the framework for growth, and it's just something that you need to be focused on regardless of how big you are or where you are. But if you want to grow, you need to be thinking about this particular blueprint that I've developed.
Yeah, nice. And I think one thing that I know just from working with you as well, one thing I love is having that big brand expertise with that startup grit. And I think that's such a great combination. So, in terms of the businesses that you help, like who do you typically work with?
That could be, a small business that has said, actually, we want to expand to another market.
Mm.
Or a founder who says, I've got this really great idea, but I don't know how to conceptualize it in a way that will get me investment interest. And then, of course, the other side of that is kind of the coaching piece, which is where I'm leaning into at the moment. What I have found is, a business might come, or a CEO might come to me and say, we need some marketing. It's like, great, let's have a look at that. Let's look at your business strategy. We don't really have one. Great. Well, you at least know what you want to do in 5 years. Well, we haven't really thought about that. Okay. Talk to me about how you make money. Well, it's just we sell stuff. So I think what ends up happening is this sort of coaching aspect
Mm.
regardless. And so I really love that. And I'm like, got to toot your own horn every now and then. Turns out I'm good at it. And I
Mm.
think that probably a little bit of why I have surprised myself at being good at it, which I haven't mentioned yet, is I spent 20 years in corporate. So that's where I think I was really lucky to build an understanding around, models and repeatable sort of systems and processes, and of course talent, right? So
Mm. Mm.
that has become, continues to be, cash flow and talent, number one things that businesses that are looking to grow struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really key, like as you said, when you work with clients and you work with different businesses, they can think that their problem is one area, but actually it just kind of, if you pull on that thread a little bit, it unravels all of these other areas to work on as well. And so I love that you have, that really holistic approach to the work. It's not just like, oh, let's just deploy a marketing strategy. It's like, okay, well, how does this marketing actually fit in with the business strategy of where you're heading? It's not just like a tactical approach. It's a little bit more holistic, which is great.
And I think it's probably been to my detriment that my brain works like that in some instances, right? Because my driver is very much around seeing a plan put in place and the outcomes of that.
Mm.
And so I have the same level of drive and aspiration, I guess, for something to succeed for my clients as I do as if it's my own business. And sometimes they don't have the same level. And so for them, it's just like, oh, well, we just thought we were going to, change the brand or the Salesforce or the tech stack or whatever it might be. It's like, no, 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 you want to have more money in your bank account.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think really understanding that is quite a unique, unique in terms of, I guess, business growth consulting. There are fantastic consultants out there that come in and do a let's look at the structure of your business. Let's look at your financials. And then, what tends to happen, it's like, cool, well, we've done that and we've uncovered this. So now we have to do another piece of work where my brain doesn't work like that. And I think clients that I have a really great interaction with and a great relationship with appreciate that, because there's no lifting up another sort of cover and it's like, oh, we've got to do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's awesome. And I think, your experience from the corporate space and your experience being made redundant, I was there once as well. And so I understand
Again.
the experience of going through that. And I think, if you've had a, quite a long career in any kind of case, it's bound to happen at some stage, right? Like a lot of people, believe that they have job security when they actually don't. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise sometimes to go through that experience. And to,
Honestly,
yeah.
I think way back when it happened, I wrote an article about, I think the article was called "Stop Telling Me It's the Best Thing That'll Ever Happen to Me," because that was, people were like, I know it feels really bad at the moment, but
Mhm.
honestly, it'll be the best thing that ever happens to you. I accidentally became a business owner, a coach, a really successful growth specialist,
Yeah.
which never would have happened if I hadn't have been made redundant. So, this has happened a few times. I've gone in to do a growth roadmap for a client, and a few months in, they sort of, can you come and run the business for a little while? So I did run a proper startup called Pleco, and we ended up winning the Startup of the Year award. That's the grit. When I talk about grit, running your own business of any kind is really, really relentlessly hard, right?
Yeah.
So I chose to start a business in COVID and then went in to run a startup at the same time as keeping my consulting going. And the startup was you know, in the renewable space, so completely new category. It was battery plus solar, so fairly new for a lot of people. There were no systems, no frameworks. Had to stand up an entire operations at the same time as negotiate a investment, a shareholder contract, and yeah, I think I probably did in 12 months what probably most people would even it out over a couple of years.
Yeah.
But it was so incredibly helpful to, I suppose, open my eyes to the things that happen outside of a corporate business or a small business when you have pressures like shareholders, like a board that is made up of technical founders, and then this whole idea that you are responsible for literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
I did
Mm-hmm.
162 interviews that year.
Yeah.
That's recruitment interviews.
That's
Yeah.
wild. I think that's a really common experience for a lot of people that have had these really, big corporate careers for a lot of years. And you get very focused on what you're good at and your role and like just playing to your strengths and going, okay, well, I'm the head of HR. And so this is what I do. And you've got a team around you that fill the gaps. And, if your computer breaks down, you call Paul the IT guy. And like, you can kind of really work like that for a lot of years and get really used to it. And then as you've experienced, you jump into a business and you are responsible for everything. The buck stops with you. So if there's something that happens, it's on you. And you're wearing all the hats is kind of the common phrase that we hear all of the time. And it can feel, quite daunting, quite confronting, quite exhilarating and exciting and like all the things. And so I love that you've sort of gone through that experience as well and, heading out the other side in terms of that growth journey of business too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so many mistakes, which again are quite common, but you don't know that at the time. So as you say, it can be a fairly isolating place to be. And I remember when I worked for a global business, and I remember the sort of global CEO talking about how, everyone thinks that I'm so busy, but actually it can be quite, lonely. And I remember thinking, whatever. But I guess that it is like it's the same sort of, it might be different actual things that you're working on, different sort of aspects of strategy, but the idea that of isolation would be very real, I imagine.
Yeah, especially, yeah, like you don't know what you don't know when you start out in business, right? And it's hard to know like whose advice or whose help to get because so many people tell you all different things. And the one thing I think is pretty clear, and this is something that I've always sort of followed in my business, is looking at, okay, well, who's actually gone out and got the results that I want to emulate for myself, and also in the way that I want to do it, because I think there's like this hustle mentality, and like you said, can be a real grind if you want it to be as well. And then there's also, you know, a way of doing it where you can make a really flexible kind of lifestyle business as well. And nothing comes without hard work. So hard work is part of all of it, but there's different ways that you can do it. So,
Yeah, I think when I started working with you, one of the early parts of the program is really talking about sort of self-image, but it's very much that whole self-belief, right? And I actually didn't know that I was good at anything, even though I was very senior at quite a young age. You know, I worked for GE, which at the time was the second biggest company in the world. I worked for Vodafone. I came back and I worked for, you know, I've sort of done all of the big brands. And I think what running my own business has done for me is made me understand that I'm actually really good at something. And so to your point, like in corporate, you're sort of encouraged to stay in your lane, right? It's like you are either strategy
yeah.
or execution.
Mm-hmm.
And in the real world, not everyone can afford strategy and execution. And actually, there's a world where, you know, you got to start, test it, improve it, keep going. So, yeah, it's a very, very different mindset to where I grew up in corporate. However, the things that I've managed to bring over, and I suspect this is true for many people that have had very senior roles in corporate, is the frameworks
Mm.
that are transferable.
Yeah, yeah. And I love how, you know, because we've been working together for a little while. So I've gotten to
Yeah.
know you, Carrie, and I love how, you know, when you're working with people, you mentioned earlier as well that your brain works a little bit differently as well. And you've kind of learned a few things about yourself along this journey, both from the corporate space and then in business as well.
Yeah.
I know you've been on this journey of self-discovery. So can you tell us a little bit more around that and how you've kind of discovered a little bit more that's helped you with your superpowers and how to really position yourself well in your market so that you don't just come across as like every other consultant out there?
Yes. I guess I had struggled with anxiety since I was a kid, sometimes quite severe anxiety, and never felt like I fit in. I nearly failed high school.
Mm.
And by nearly failed it, I mean the principal called my mum and said, "We think we should hold Kerry back." I had the lowest entry score into uni, and I got into uni and into a Bachelor of Arts, which was great because I was going to be a political speechwriter at the same time as being a John Farnham backup singer, by the way. So, of course, 6 months into that, I came home and I said to mum, "I hate it." And she said, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't really know. I think I might." At the time, I was working at Video Easy.
Oh, those were the days.
And
Yeah.
she said, "Well, you got to pay your board and you want to drive a car." So, and I said, "Okay, cool." And I got a job selling shoes in this, what was then like the ultimate shoe store in Perth. And I came to understand this whole phenomenon around kind of concept of commission. And so I went home to mum and I said, "So there's this thing called marketing." And she said, "Right." I said, "I want to do that." And she's like, "Okay." So like I wasn't that kid that had the really clear view of what I wanted to do. I was always chopping and changing. My anxiety was like a real solid presence. I'm dyslexic and I also have dyscalculia, which is essentially the same thing but numbers and symbols. And so my entire career, I was basically spending just an inordinate amount of time worried about being found out. It's like, oh, they're gonna find me out. They're gonna know that I I ask for the pack for the pre-board meetings. I ask for it 4 days ahead of everybody else so that I can study it. I've got a sort of tutor that I help me go through the financials for my budget so that I know what I'm talking about. And now, no one would have known this. But of course, what comes with that is this whole, like, we call that masking, and sort of, it's incredibly tough on your nervous system. And I was a shell. I just was always on edge. Really funny because, of course, that's how you make people look over here instead of, oh, geez, I hope they don't ask me like a serious question. But I couldn't think on my feet.
Mm.
And then the next day, I would be like, what? It be this? But time has come and gone. In corporate, it's very much you get asked a question, you need to know the answer then. And so at the age of 46, I got diagnosed with ADHD. And at the age of 47, I got diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Everything made sense. I didn't know what either of those things were. And this is only 4 years ago, and I'm very embarrassed to say that. And it was only because of my people in my family that were going through the sort of diagnosis process. And I realized that I wasn't dumb and I wasn't weird. Probably am weird, but I was weird, like there's a bunch of
Weird,
other
yeah.
people.
We're all a bit weird.
That's why I think I'm very good at being able to diagnose and implement. But there's just like the kind of ADHD brain is driven by sort of renowned for starting the new shiny
Yeah,
thing.
the new shiny objects and things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have like a deficiency in dopamine. So I've got a lower level of dopamine in my brain than say my sister does.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily want it to be like that. But
Yeah.
if you look at a scan of a ADHD brain and a neurodiverse brain and a neurotypical brain, they actually look different. So yeah.
So interesting. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable with this, Kerry, because I know it's like, it's such a personal thing and you've had those experiences, right from school all the way through your career and into your business as well. And I know there'll be people that are listening to this that can relate to you or maybe can't relate to you or just have a better understanding about this as well. And I think it's just really nice to have this conversation. And I think the more we kind of have this conversation, it's really good to get that understanding of other people that we work with as well. And so I really do appreciate you sort of opening up and being vulnerable because I know it's quite difficult to talk about at times when you talk about yourself and some of the struggles and challenges you've had. And one of the quotes that I love from Steve Jobs is, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can connect the dots looking back. And so I love you've had that experience of going like, you know what, actually, I'm okay. And this is, I know how to manage this, or this is how it works for me, and this is how it doesn't. And like to have that self-awareness, like, awesome. I love how you have actually turned it into a superpower when you're working with your clients and you've got a really good handle on like, okay, who are the clients who are for me and who are the ones I want to work with and who are the ones that just, don't get me or, like it's just not a good fit. And so I love that you've kind of used that and have really applied that in your business as well. So I'd love to shift gears a little bit and talk more like around your business and where things are going, because I know you've had a significant journey to get here and, starting the business is no small feat at all. And, when we started working together, you were about 6 or 7 years into the business. Is that about right?
Yep.
Yeah. And there was a shift that you were wanting to make. So I'd love to hear a little bit around like where you're heading in the business, what you're really excited about moving forward in the business, and a couple of things that through your experience working with us have made a difference in terms of your business results and where you're heading.
So my ADHD brain is going to all of the things that I can answer on that question. But so I mentioned before that I accidentally fell into it, right?
Yeah.
And it was at a time where the idea of a fractional CMO or an outsourced CMO was completely new.
Mm.
Even to me at the time, I thought, who's going to pay me for like executive level thinking? And the reality is a whole bunch of people, because the knowledge and the expertise is required,
Mm-hmm.
but it's required for a specific period of time
Mm.
if they have a very clear road, like pathway to where they want to get. And no one wants to bring overheads into their business if they don't have to. So I just kept getting business. Like and COVID happened, which was very, very fortunate for me because it meant that a whole bunch of businesses needed to rethink their strategy, that
Yeah.
needed to rethink their channels to market
And fast. There
and
was
fast.
no warning.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, in COVID, I had clients in London, in Canada, in Singapore. And at the time, because I'd spent so much time in banking and finance, at the time, a lot of them were fintechs or, startups and really halfway into their scaling journey and were like, ooh, we've got to pivot here. And so that experience was incredible. And moving on, I think what happened was I just kept getting clients and I hadn't put too much thought into what did I really want? Like, what sort of business did I really want to work on?
Mm, mm.
I hadn't, I was going from one thing to the other. And so I hadn't stopped to contemplate the the values or the characteristics, or I knew once I got in there, which was like, oh, well, this will just be a one-off project, or
Yeah.
or the not listening to the intuition and thinking, God, I knew this was going to be like this. So I think where I've landed and how I came to be working with you is I I really love working with people who are intentionally committed to either self-growth or business growth because they have a goal in mind. And the kind of model shake-up I've done of my business is um, to effectively be more modular. So, if there's an individual that is really focused on growing their skill set because they, at the moment they're a COO and they want to become a CEO, and that is actually, a different level of skills when it comes to stakeholder engagement, when it comes to leadership. So the sort of ability to wrap a frame around that
Mm-hmm.
so that they've got a clear path and also those
Yeah.
capabilities are being worked on. They're not
Yeah.
just sitting in a PowerPoint deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is looking at sort of businesses that have got a specific goal, have got clear leadership.
Mm.
And, I think I said it before, it's like, we want to IPO in 18 months. Can you help us make our
Yeah.
run rate?
Get there. Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. I'm working on this piece of work with you. These other bits, they're yours.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So what I've heard you say is like you really kind of did a shake up of your model. So you're working a little bit differently with clients as well. And I think having worked with so many clients and just taking on client after client, you're really clear on how you want to work moving forward and exactly what you said there. Like, this is the piece of work that I'm going to do, and then the rest is on you, and just getting really clear boundaries in place, I think is really important. And, since you've done that and since you've kind of create a little bit more coaching, a little bit more leverage in the business, like how's that had an effect on your business in terms of revenue, lifestyle? Like what's that looking like for you at the moment?
I say this to you all the time, and I will continue to say it. I've had coaches before, and that, varying degrees of okay. What I absolutely love about you, Amy, is that you've got the scars, so you've been there and done it. Really important, right? You have done that across different sized and different kind of categories, businesses, different size businesses in different categories. And then what you have done is almost got into my head, into my filing system. I don't have a filing system, of course, but you do. And so you have you've really sequenced things in a way that makes complete sense. For you've basically done for me what I do for, fintechs,
Yeah.
which is it's like you need foundations, and it might be in your head. That's not helpful.
Mm.
So, it's really around the momentum that I have gained in a short period of time just by doing what you have said is I'm mind blown. I think I landed my first new sort of project client, and I like really, it's exactly the space that renewables,
Mm-hmm.
brilliant founders needed help with a really specific thing. And I was like, oh my God, wow. I've only been like, I just did what Amy said I should do. And that was 3 weeks in, I think. But really, the it's not about you providing templates. It's about the knowledge share and the articulation of when to focus on what,
Mm-hmm.
when to focus on what. And I think there's just something you can't, I can't work with somebody who hasn't got the runs on the board. Like if someone says, oh, yeah, you need to just focus on things that are driving revenue, it's like, cool. What do you call building content? Is that driving revenue?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just get a graphic designer to do it. It's like, no, that's it. That's my IP.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started to see how you had laid down. I could see someone who's done it. Obviously, I can see that you're very successful. And I could see someone who has commitment to optimizing. So you even optimizing your own program. Like whilst I'm in it, it's like, oh hey guys, there's a new something something on module 4. Go check it out. It's like, oh, I just did module 4. Go check it out. Absolutely, absolutely, I'll go check it out because I know if you've done something, you're applying it to your business, and I
Mm-hmm.
damn well want to apply it to my business. So yeah, I feel a little bit annoyed at myself, Amy, that I only just found you.
Oh. Well, Kerry, that's so nice to hear. Firstly, I'm really like humbled and I love working with you and I know I love having you a part of the tribe as well because you just bring so much to our community and it's awesome. If you're okay to share, there was something that I know happened with this first client that you landed.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's really worth highlighting this lesson because I think for many of us, particularly maybe if you're starting to work with, clients or you may be undervaluing yourself and all sorts of things. And I'm not saying you were doing this, Kerry, but what I'm saying, there's some people out there that might be a little bit worried when a client first says to you, hey, this is my budget. And, you're thinking, well, actually, it's going to cost a lot more than this. And I'm worried about presenting them with an offer or an investment that's higher than their budget. So can you just share what you're comfortable to share around how you landed this client and what kind of happened in that negotiation?
So I think what I have learnt from running a kind of consulting business is always ask what people have in their head up front around budget, right? It sort of feels scary when you start doing it, but having a guide is so helpful for both, right? And it's also massively efficient because if they say, oh, my budget is $500, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, it is going to be a lot more than that. Are you open to exploring that? No,
Mhm.
I don't have. It's like, okay, great. So no one's wasting time,
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Huge proponent of that, right? And I know I've heard you talk about that as well. So I asked this particular client, potential client, like what their budget was, and they said, oh, I haven't really thought about it. I don't know, 10 grand. I was like, okay, cool. And so we'd done a big sort of discovery session, and then part of what I will always do, and I think I will find ways to improve this process, but I'll never not do proposals that are specific to the problem, right? And as I got into this proposal that was specific to the problem, I was like, oh, that's going to be a lot more than that's going to be a lot more of my time than 10 grand. And
Mhm.
also they need this. This is like the springboard
Yeah.
for the next 2 years for them.
Hmm.
I would feel terrible if I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And I think I said to you guys, oh, I'll do it at a discounted rate and it'll be a really good one to have on the as a sort of starter and we'll get it.
Hmm.
And so all of that needed to be true because 10 grand was going to be a lot less.
Yeah.
And I've done that before and you end up resenting the project,
Hmm.
resenting the founder. If you go back to them and say, hey, I really priced myself badly on that one. And they say, well, you said it.
Yeah.
they are not the client for you. They are not the client for you.
That's right. So what did you do differently in this scenario?
So I did up, and I it was almost double, right? And I said, when I actually sent the proposal through, and just I record a little video to say what you'll see in the proposal is, and I called it out straight away. I was like, look, you're going to see a figure in here that's not around what we talked about, but if you go and have a look at the steps that I have laid out on page whatever,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see that there's a significant amount of work that needs to happen there. Actually, the real figure is 38,000 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see if we can meet somewhere around 20, and it would be great if you could commit to this and this and
Yeah.
whatever. So I didn't hear from her for a few days. And so I was like, oh, no, it's gonna like what
Yeah.
it's too much. Anyway, so we had this follow-up call for me to walk through it. It's all chatty. We're talking about, I don't know, probably talking about cats. And I said, so, what did you think about the proposal? She's like, it's the best proposal I've ever received.
Mm.
And I said, oh, okay. What about the figure? And she said, oh, no, I didn't even. She said, I could see how you got there. She said, actually, I just don't want you to be out of pocket. Probably fell on the floor, Amy. I think, um, that's a partnership. That's someone who's looking for a
Yes.
partnership.
Yeah.
And I backed myself in a way that I was okay if it didn't come off,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that the alternative of delivering what needed to happen.
Yeah.
So there were two alternatives: deliver what needed to happen and
Mm-hmm.
have a really ugly margin,
Yes.
or deliver an average job and hate myself,
Mm-hmm.
probably never get work out of them again. Whereas now the conversation is very much around what are we going to do, like what we want to work on next together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a hard place to get to, and I have learnt the hard way for sure. I've told
Mm.
you before that I've taken on clients when I'm like, red flag, red flag,
Yeah.
it's been a nightmare. So the journey to get to self-belief, like self, that sort of self-image of, I will add more value than 10 grand or
Yes.
20 grand. Like I know what I'm doing. And like, do I think that this is fair?
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. And I love that because I think it's just a massive difference of working with premium level clients as well. And so I think, like you said, you've got your foundation set up in a way that you're attracting those kind of clients in the first place. And so then when you go to present something, it's a very different experience, like you said, to what you've had in the past. And, having those sales conversations, doing those, proposals and things can feel a little bit different, but in a great way. And so I just love that. And honestly, we're just getting started. So I love that you've had this because this has already well and truly covered your investment working with us. We're just
Oh,
fully in profit now. Like it's just,
honestly.
let's go, girl.
And I think you're extremely pragmatic in the way that you break things down, right? And I think I haven't said this to you, but I have said it to other people. It's like, for years I was like, God, I don't need a coach. Like, I know it all. I know it all. Yeah, I know the stuff.
Mhm.
I do. I've got amazing content. I've got amazing frameworks. I've got incredible experience. Not so much at like the business structure that I want, not so much at like, I mean, I am extremely lucky with my flexibility, but geez, I wouldn't mind having every Monday and Friday off.
You can do
Well,
that.
yeah, but you lead by example, Amy. You're like, I don't work on a Friday. Sorry, guys. It's like, what? But it's like you don't work, right? No, it's not like I'll check my emails. It's like I'm with my bubba. Like I don't
Yeah.
does. And I think that the leading by example bit
Mm.
is a differentiator for you, because well, for the very reason, right? It's like you wouldn't tell me to do something that you don't do.
100%. Yeah. That's exactly it. I don't ask any of my clients to do something I'm not willing to go forth and do myself. And as you said, I've got the battle scars and the testing. And then once I know what works, I just give you the playbook and then off you go. So yeah, I really, as I said, so humbled that you say that. I really do love
I'm a
working
I'm a
with
tough
you.
crowd,
I know.
and I'm pretty boring in general. I don't like people, and I love the people that I love,
Yeah,
but there's a reason I hate parties.
yeah.
I don't want to go to parties anymore. So now I just have like, catch ups and stuff. And at the moment, my rabbit hole and my one sort of constant topic is you, like my business, and like, yeah, but you need to go and check her out.
That's so nice. Thank you, Kerry. And as I said, like this is just the start. So I'm really looking forward. We're going to do a part 2 of this because like we're at the very start of the journey together and I can't wait to see how things are going to develop for you over the next, 12, 18 months, however long we're working together. And it's just so exciting to me. So I love that. Congratulations on all your success so far. For anyone that's listening to this who thinks they might need a Kerry in their world to come in and just get their business cracking and get them the right plans and the right growth strategy, where can they go and find you? And this is a trick question, so you better answer this.
LinkedIn.
Ah, she did it.
Why is that trick? That's not a trick question. LinkedIn, honestly, I live on there, and there's a reason that I live on there because my clients are on there. They might be lurking like we used to do, but definitely on there. And I read all my, listen to me, I read all my DMs. No, but I'm obviously in my DMs,
Yeah.
and yeah, just hit me up, Kerry Milne, Milne.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much, Kerry. This has been super enjoyable. And as I said, I just love working with you.
So,
We're actually just about to jump off and we're going to be on
yeah,
a weekly call together with the tribe. So, you've got a quick minute to grab a cup of
I
water
know.
or whatever we need to do. And I'll see you on the other side.
See
But
you on the other side.
thanks
Thanks
so
for
much for
having
joining
me.
me and being so vulnerable in sharing your journey because I think it's so helpful for so many people that have been listening to this and maybe you can relate to a few things you've gone through as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.